The first image, vision brings to us the realms of the fabulous, the miraculous, the unseen, which form part of our awareness and imagination. Imagine then the Hiranyagarbha, literally translated as the golden womb, from which floats on the waters of eternity, conceived as the origin of creation. The Rig Veda devotes a whole composition in praise of a single supreme deity. I'm not going to read you this quote, but in the course of painting his whole series, because he did all the paintings on the Bhagavad Puran, Manaku, the son of Mandarsyo, the elder son, must have had a real problem. This great master painter of drama and style and figures must have had a problem with this first painting of the Hiranyagarbha, because the Hiranyagarbha was a totally abstract form. And I think he conceived a masterpiece. But what is important is that Professor Goswamy, in his notes, adds a footnote to his comments. And he says, he describes when one sees the painting laid flat, the egg appears a bit dark. It is when you hold the painting in your hand as it was meant to be seen and move it ever so slightly that it reveals itself. The great egg begins to glisten, an ovoid form of the purest gold. True Hiranya, to use the Sanskrit term for the precious metal. Next, please. Shall we look at another painting of the section which is called Visions? Here we have the speaking tree. The speaking tree, which was particularly used, used, perhaps is not the right word, in Islamic illustrations. It is mentioned by Firdaus in the Shahnama. It is mentioned in the Iskandar Nama, which is, of course, Iskandar means Alexander. And can you hear me, or am I talking too loud or too short? Is it all right?
Perfect.
Oh, fine, thank you. Because I can't hear myself. So here we have in the speaking tree, which was done probably in Golconda in the Deccan, and Professor Goswamy adds or Mughal, so I have put that in, but I am firmly of the belief that it is from the Deccan. The whole idea of the speaking tree is that Alexander comes across the two trunks sprout male heads which warn him about his share of blessings, that he's received them. And the female heads, which you see, who tell him that his last days are near. And the prophecy that they predict was not wrong, because Alexander died far from home in Babylon soon after. Now Goswami reminds us that this legend has persisted over centuries, changing in different lands. It appears in Arabic and Persian texts. Alexander appears on horseback near the tree, or he's not there at all, with only human figures suspended from the branches. The tree is symbolic of all that we can imagine, but not really see in its materiality, of the mysteries that surround us. Hence the word that Professor Goswamy uses, visions, is so appropriate. So we've seen two different approaches. One of the Hiranyagarbha, which is so remote, so distant, and the other of the speaking tree, which is so close so direct, so menacing in a sense. I come now, next slide, to the third of the series under visions, and this is a Mughal painting. It's a Mughal painting of the Virgin with child. How are we sure that it's a Virgin? How could it not just be a mother and child? I think that really we must mention the fact that it is with the Mughals that European painting made a tremendous impact. I mean, it is in 1578 to 79 that the Jesuit fathers came from Goa, 2 of them, and they wrote about their travels. They wrote about how the Emperor Akbar was extremely interested in hearing about different religions. Let's not forget that it was just 1579 that Akbar founded the Dini Elahi, the religion which he founded, which brought together very temporarily all the religions in India, and he had meetings of the different religions, including the Jesuit priests. And the Jesuit priests also allowed for the fact that they brought with them artifacts and paintings. And these European features, how did they influence Mughal art? I think I don't really need to explain this. It is quite apparent that you have in this marvelous, wonderful composition 2 different kinds of perspective. You have the flat, carpet, which is laid flat, like you might have in other Indian paintings. And lying on it, you have the Virgin in 3 dimension, in a totally different perspective. And the sense of volume or 3 dimension is much more acute because of the fact of the colors that are used. That use of green worn by the Virgin of the Madonna, and around the green, the red shawl, which by the way is repeated again, the use of the red with the green in the drapes that you see behind her. And then through the drapes, you look at the courtyard. I mean, there's a far distant perspective. I think one of the most important aspects to this painting, one of the most important contributions to Mughal painting that was made by European influences was the use of perspective. The use of color, a little bit, here very prominent, but certainly the perspectives. And I think this is very important to mention. Goswamy ends his talk about this painting by saying, engagingly, the sum of all these parts seems somehow to have a very Indian air. So I do agree with Professor Goswamy, because despite the fact that this looks like a very European influenced miniature, Mughal miniature, with its sense of perspective, its use of color, it somehow at the end leaves us feeling, you can't feel that this painting would be, I don't feel that this painting could be produced in Europe. It is, although it's not signed, attributed to one of the great masters of Mughal painting, Basawan. Next, ever upon holy dervishes. I think here Goswamy mentions the play of the words surat and mani in Persian are referring to the outward appearance and the inward feeling, the essence, which is a theme much favored in Sufi discourse. Now, next slide, please. We have a very, very wonderful, wonderful painting, which to my next, please, which is to my mind, one of the greatest paintings of Mughal art. And it's a very unusual one. As Goswamy mentions, there are many paintings which show, lovers pining for each other, looking for each other, the Naika. But there is nothing quite like this. Jahangir holds in his hand, with reverence, a portrait of the Emperor Akbar. And both of them are haloed. This could never happen in the time of Akbar because Akbar never showed himself haloed as Jahangir did. And both of them stand at a window, which is the custom adopted by the Mughals, and it was called darshan. It was from Rajput custom of showing themselves to the public. But what is most important is the globe. I think the key to the painting is the orb that the Emperor Akbar holds. Look also at the difference in colors. I mean, the Emperor Akbar is white, austere, and Jahangir, with all his flamboyance, is very different. Jama. So, this is a painting. Jahangir invented a new kind of portraiture, which also had its origins in Western art, and that was the idea of the allegorical portrait. This, as the previous one, is an allegorical portrait. It is what Jahangir would wish to see, or what he would wish others to see. He holds the picture of his father. Actual history tells us that it was very different, because Jahangir was totally, as Shah Salim, he was Salim as a prince. He was totally alienated from his father for the last 15 years, and he set up court separately in Allahabad from 1598. So this portrait, which was done in Jahangir's time, maybe about 1610, was certainly different in the sense that it shows Jahangir totally reconciled with his father, and his father offering him the rulership of the world. His name that he took on becoming the emperor is Jahangir, the Caesar of the world. So it's a very appropriate allegorical painting. Shall we move to the next one? It is also inscribed, which has been mentioned.
Geeti,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt you.
So I'll finish this with this one painting.
Choose one painting of the remaining ones.
Okay,
And then you'll
so
have to
we will
wind
just
up because
move
we're
to
very
Rajasid's Sen of Mandi, and I wanted to mention the fact that it's completely different from the hills. But what is important is where is he going in his underpants? I mean, it's Jahangir calls, Professor Goswamy calls this an informal portrait. But can we move to the next slide? And the next section, we can skip this, is Raja Balwant Singh, the third portrait, examining a painting with Nansuk standing behind him. And next, please. We have the third section, which is called Passions. This is one of the most wonderful paintings, I think, from all the series of, it's called the Chora Panchashika series, and this is the painting which I choose to speak about. And it is really early, it establishes the fact that the painting is not only started after the Mughals in Rajputana, it certainly was there earlier. Next, please. This is the folio from the Rasamanjari, and it's attributed to Kirpal of Nurpur, and it shows us the tremendous advantage that is there. I mean, like all Rajput painting, there is a line above. But the most important painting, I think, next please, is the painting of, which my favorite, of the Geet Govind, and it's painted in the family of Nansuk, but after him. And you can imagine it's dark, the stars are out, the night sky, but the two of them are lit up like it, like there is some magic that was happening in their union. And the last slide I have, which is the most important slide, is the one called Intimations. It brings us to the last section, his fourth section, which is contemplation. And we come back to Mughal art, where we look at a man who cannot be recognized. Did the painter actually know him? Or was it an allegorical painting? Here is a man absolutely realistic. Look at his eyes and his feet. He has seen better days. He's a mendicant or he's a pilgrim, but he is wobbling along. And what is important? Is it an allegorical painting? Did the painter ever know him? But it is by Abul Hassan. And what is really interesting, I think, are the little flowers at the bottom right, because they give us the intimation of vitality, of rebirth. And it takes us back into the idea of allegory. So I just bring you these 11 paintings. I'm sorry if I overstepped.